The quick conclusion would be that these barbell rows are making me weaker, because today I was unable to hit 260 on the deadlift. I've been hitting 260 on the deadlift now a few times a week, a couple times a week, 2 times a week for the last, I want to say, 2 weeks. It's been a really nice run, feeling really strong in the deadlift, pulling damn near my max weight twice a week, which is really encouraging. 6 days ago, I introduced barbell rowing, and now I am essentially under-recovered, and I wasn't able to hit 260 today. The lightweight felt really good. I felt really solid. When I got to 250 kilos today, I just couldn't lock my lats in and was struggling, really struggling off the floor. So the quick conclusion would be, these barbell rows are, making you weaker. But the more kind of in-depth thinking would show that what's actually happening is that barbell rowing is fatiguing the muscles which are required for you to be strong off the floor. The reason why I say this is because after the deadlifting, I went over to the rack pulls and I felt really good in the rack pulls, like so much so that I felt stronger than normal in the rack pulls. So this is interesting. Off the floor, I'm weaker. Off the rack, I'm stronger. I was actually off the rack feeling so strong that I tried 270. I didn't get it, but that's a really encouraging sign to me that I was, feeling so good that I was gonna try and hit a PR on the rack pull. After the rack pull 270 fail, I ended up, going to my normal 180, the 4 plates. Usually I do 3 sets of 10. Today I ended up doing 5 sets of 10. So that alone is really interesting, that the barbell rowing has done something to the rack pull that's made me feel that well that I can actually do the volume kind of PR to it. But off the floor, I'm really weak, really inhibited off the floor. So a couple of things come to mind with that. The barbell rows are taxing the living hell out of the muscles which are really required for off the floor strength. So, I would say that there is a greater demand on lat strength when you're in that fully bent over position on the floor, when you're deadlifting off the floor. That initial pull really needs you to have maximum capacity, maximum strength for the lats, more so than when you're at 45 degrees back angle, more so when the bar is kind of towards the knee level, because you're more vertical, right? Your torso is more vertical, and it just makes sense that you're less required to pull the bar in. Whereas on the floor, it depends on leverages obviously, but on the floor for me, I feel like I really need to focus on those lats to keep the bar close to me, because if I start pushing with my legs and the bar starts to drift away from me, all of a sudden the lever in my back is growing and growing and growing, the shoulders unglued, and all of a sudden I'm freaking really mechanically disadvantaged and the whole thing falls apart. So 6 days ago, I introduced barbell rowing. It hasn't been heavy stuff, man. I've been doing like 60 kilos for a whole bunch of sets of 10. Nothing crazy, trying to ease into it. But it's been probably 2 or 3 sessions that I've done with barbell rowing. But these 2 or 3 sessions have, made it more difficult for my lower back to recover, for the core to recover, for the lats to recover in between the 2 sessions of heavy rack pulling, heavy deadlifting. So right now I'm doing Wednesdays and Sundays. This is what the roster's allowed me to do, really. But Wednesdays and Sundays are my dreaded days. This is where I do the rack pulls. I say they're dreaded because freaking hard work, man. It's not fun for me to do rack pulls, but it's a necessary part of my training right now. Most of the resources are going into this Wednesday and Sundays. But these barbell rows have made me kind of spill over a little bit. Just a bit too much volume for me to recover from for the lower back. I know a bunch of you guys have said you can't do barbell rowing and deadlifting. It's just way too taxing. I hear, and this is exactly what I'm experiencing right now. But what I would say is that if you persist for a greater period of time, you can develop that resilience in the lower back, in the posterior chain, to accommodate it to some degree, right? I mean, 2 heavy pulling sessions a week is heavy enough for the posterior chain. Now I'm putting barbell rowing on top. I might need to alter something in all of this, because it's just might be too much. But before I alter anything, I will give it some time. I want to give it some time with barbell rowing with this setup right now and see where I end up. It's just interesting how the rack pull and the deadlift are not equally affected. the rack felt amazing today. After the 5 sets of 10 with 180, I was so freaking spent. I could barely squat, man. My lower back was so fried that I couldn't stabilize it anymore in a squatting motion. I was leaning over a lot. I was butt winking. And there was just nothing left in my lower back. So I worked up to 2 plates or 100 kilos, and that was it, man. Heavy session today. When I started, warming up with the bar and 60 and 100 kilos with the deadlift, started the session, I actually felt pretty good. I felt locked in. I felt, mind-muscle connection with the lats. Like I was feeling really good. But that top end strength, when the weights got heavy, I couldn't stabilize it anymore. The lats are fatigued basically, the lats and also the lower back. So I couldn't manage it. But I don't know if you guys noticed, but I went from 220 to 250. And the reason why I did that is because I was kind of secretly hoping that I might have 270 on the map today. And I didn't want to have too big of a jump between 240 and 270. So I went, okay, let me do 250 and kind of close the gap, so it's not too much of a CNS shock when I start pulling at 270. It just didn't happen, man. 250 felt way too heavy. I tried 260, failed that. My back is just weak. So moving forward, I have to have a good think, man. I don't mind having a dip in performance if there's going to be, super compensation eventually, and I'll get more resilient in the lower back and whatever. But like I mentioned in few videos ago, the barbell row and freaking deadlift, they're using the same stuff, man. They're using the same stuff, but in reverse, right? With the deadlift, the upper back is basically isometrically holding, while the lower body is actually doing the motion. So you are hip extending. So your glutes and hamstrings and adductors are doing the hip extension. That's doing the actual movement. And the rest of the body is just isometrically holding, especially the upper body. You're just kind of holding tight, holding the position. With barbell rowing, it's the opposite. With barbell rowing, your glutes, adductors, hamstrings, all of that stuff is isometrically holding now. Because that's not moving. What's moving is the elbows, the arms. The arms are moving. So the scapular retraction, you're rowing essentially while the lower body is isometrically holding. So basically, both movements are doing the exact same thing, just in reverse. So they're using the same resources, they're fighting for the same resources, same musculature, just we're swapping up what the moving parts are. So this is why, like a lot of the novice programs, the 5x5, the Mark Ripperto stuff, like starting strength and all those, strong lifts, mad cow, like all these, will have you deadlift and barbell row interchangeably. So on day 1, you're doing deadlifts. On day 2, you're doing barbell rows. On day 3, you're doing deadlifts. You do barbell rowing and deadlifting in the same session, because that's the thinking. You're basically doing the same muscles. Why would you use 2 different movements for the same muscles? What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to have 2 heavy-ass sessions a week with deadlifting and the rack pulling, the variation that I'm using for the deadlifts. So I'm doing that twice a week, Wednesdays and Sundays, and I'm sprinkling the freaking barbell rowing around that. It might be too much. But as I always say, man, like I feel like you can develop a resilience to this stuff if you ease into it. People used to say squatting every day was too much. People were saying deadlifting every day was too much. Deadlifting twice a week is too much. Everyone says everything, but if you ease into it and allow for, the compensations to happen slowly, you'll be all right. That's what I am saying right now. Clearly, the performance has dropped because of this new load on top of the body. But if you give it enough time, I reckon there might be a surprise. Right now, the body's kind of freaking out, under recovering. But if you auto-regulate that and, you kind of work around it, you should be all right. And that's where I find myself right now. It's a whole lot of work, man. Like my lower back is proper fatigued. The lats are not sore, but judging by the 260 kilo today and the 250 even, the lats didn't have the strength in them to kind of lock down the shoulder girdle, and I started, unlocking with 250 even. So it's a good thing. If you think about it, barbell rows are making me weaker. that's actually a good thing, because you know that they're actually hitting the stuff that you need to hit. What I like about barbell rowing is that it's actually light stuff. You're using lightweight, like 60 kilos, man. Like that's lightweight. The only trouble is you're spending a lot of time in that bent over position. So the lower back, the hip extensors, even the hip flexors, even like everything's freaking just locking that position in, and that probably produces a lot of fatigue. So let's see how it goes. I'll continue tomorrow I'll barbell row. I'll just use 60 kilos again. So I'll come in, I'll try and front squat. Depends how I feel, like always. I'll do some front squatting, and then I'll try to do some barbell rowing. And then I won't do anything on Tuesday. On Wednesday I'll come in, I'll try and basically repeat the same workout as I did today. And I'll see what's possible. If I start stringing in like 2, 3, 4, 5 of these sessions together, and I'm continuously getting weaker and weaker, then you can probably start to think to yourself, okay, maybe we are biting off too much here. Maybe it's impossible to do 2 heavy deadlift sessions and 2 barbell rowing sessions. Albeit the barbell rowing is light, maybe it's still too much. But before we make that call, let's give it a good go. Like right now, what I really don't want to do is start chasing my own tail. I don't want to start deleting a rack pull session and plugging in a barbell session. I feel like I'm going one step forward, one step back. I really want to keep the rack pulls in. This is, I feel like, is the most important part. I'm entertaining the barbell row, but there's no way I'm going to start throwing stuff out that I know works. So the barbell, the rack pulls are going to stay put. What's on trial right now is the barbell rows. So, I can already hear you guys saying, well, why don't you just drop one of the rack pull sessions and put a barbell set? I don't want to do that because I know rack pulls right now twice a week are doing really well. I don't want to sacrifice those sessions. What I'm trying to trial now is a little bit of barbell rowing. Maybe that can help me. If it's taken a lot out of me and it's been 2-3 weeks and I'm still suffering, then I'll have to kind of reevaluate it. Maybe just have one barbell session a week instead of the 2. The reason why I'm going for like 2 instead of 1 is because I really don't want to have a heavy barbell row session. I want to have just 2 kind of like little light sessions. They're not going to tax me too much. That's always been my, view on things. Break up that volume, man. Like, don't have monster sessions of volume, not frequent enough. Like, if you think about it right now, I'm doing 2 rack pull sessions a week and they're killing me. But could you imagine if I took both of those freaking sessions and rolled them into 1? Well, then freaking you would have to call an ambulance to get me out of the gym, because that, like, damn, like 10 sets of, 10 with a 180 in the rack pull. Jesus, man, I don't think I'd be able to get out of bed the following day. So that's the thing. Like, in all of this, like, I am thinking about the scientific method. You have to hold some things constant, and you need to have a variable. And if you have too many variables, the results become murky and you don't really know what's going on. So what I've done here is I've introduced barbell rowing. I've tried to hold everything else constant to see what the result is. With biology, it's hard because there's a lot of freaking things going up and down. There's a lot of moving parts. But you still need to try at least to work out, okay, do barbell rows help? My gut feeling is they are helping me with the upper back. I can feel my upper back, the traps, the lats, the middle back, the rhomboid. Actually, today when I was doing the deadlifting, I didn't tell you this. What I felt mostly, was the mid back. So like not the lower back, not the upper back, but mid back, like mid erectors. They were fatiguing and they were breaking form. I didn't even mention that. I talked about lower back and lats, but that's what I was feeling most strained today in today's workout. That mid back, mid erectors. They were just fatiguing. Which is probably explained by the barbell rowing. They're just taking a bit too many resources away from me, and I can't recover right now. But that's what I'm thinking right now. Obviously, there's no alarm. It's just we kind of predicted this was going to happen. A lot of you guys are saying it's way too much, but let's see. I really want to trial this and see how it goes. Appreciate all of you guys on Patreon. Like always, special thanks to the fellas on the screen. Appreciate all of you guys on Instagram. Instagram is kind of taking a backseat now because I feel like I have 50 platforms to catch up to. I still want to do the weekly, fortnightly Q&A questions on Patreon, on Discord, and I'm trying to stay active. So I feel like I'm everywhere right now. But right now, the priority is always going to be for me is Patreon, the YouTube comments, obviously, and Patreon. Instagram's kind of fallen to the side because it's another set of messages I need to get to. But appreciate all of you guys reaching out and commenting, as always, supporting me. It means a lot. Appreciate all of you guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.